Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dave and you're watching Gaming with Dave. Today we are going to discuss the economy of RuneScape and how everything works and why prices are the way they are, what makes things go up, what makes things go down. But before we do that, let's cue the intro. So in this video, we're not going to be getting into economics theory or concepts or anything of that nature. Because when you look at supply and demand on an economics principle, it gets a lot more complicated than what we're going to really describe today. However, the reality is the principles still remain the same. So let's dive into how the RuneScape economy really works. So before we dive into an actual explanation, it's important to understand that there's always two sides of a buying and selling transaction. There's a buyer and there's a seller. So in a nutshell, if there is a demand for an item, so somebody wants to buy something and they really want it, which is typically driven by new content, better gear than they already have, or any combination of the two, then they're willing to pay more money for it, right? This is just natural. And then you also have the supply side of it and people actually going out and farming the equipment. So when all things are equal, when you have the same amount of demand, the same amount of people wanting to buy an item, and the same amount of people selling the item, well, there's going to be essentially a one-to-one exchange, which means that everybody can get the item that they want. Now, there's going to be slight variations of the price, but all things being equal, the price should remain the same. The price should not increase or decrease over time, and this is simply because the items are being sold fairly quickly. But what happens when you change either side of this buyer-selling equation? Let's pretend now instead of there being 5 buyers, there's now 10 buyers. So 10 people wanting to buy the goods, but only 5 people producing the goods. Well, typically speaking, what this means is that in order to attract the attention of the sellers, then you're going to have to simply offer more money in order to get in the front of the line. Unlike, I don't want to say quote-unquote real life, where we have an abundance of supply, in RuneScape, sometimes we don't. Sometimes the amount of items that are out in the game are just simply not there, and so you have to increase the price. Now, on the other flip side, at the same time, if you decrease the amount of supplies, the amount of people that are selling the items, well, then you'll have a very similar impact because the same thing results in the sense that there's less people producing the item, there's more people that want it, and thus the price is going to increase. Now, of course, what this means is that if you increase the supply, thus the amount of people selling the item, but decrease the amount of people buying the item, well, then you're going to simply have a decrease in price as well. Now, you can actually see both of these principles in action when a new item is released into the game. Typically speaking, when a new item is released into the game, the demand for that item far exceeds the supply that is given. And so oftentimes you'll see a price increase in value at the very onset. And then as the supply of that item, thus more people doing that boss or that piece of content increase, the price of the item slowly decreases over time. I'll throw up some examples here to show you. So RuneScape and Jagex actually throw quite a few little things that play with these dynamics. So the first things first is that whenever they release new content, the new items are typically going to take over some of the demand of the old items. So for example, if there's a new, two-handed weapon between a Dragon Rider Lance and a scythe, for example, I would highly suspect that the price of both the scythe and the Dragon Rider Lance would decrease slightly because the demand for this in-between item would increase. Now, this is just a theory at this point in time, but in theory, that would work, right? Now, the other thing that they do has to do with trade limits. So you can imagine, say me, I'm producing diamond bolt tips, okay? I want to go and produce these, and I can make thousands upon thousands of these items. Well, the trouble is that an individual can only buy 10,000 of these items at a time. And so you can imagine that if I have 100,000 bolt tips to sell and there's only 2 people that want to buy them at the price that I'm willing to sell them, well, I've only sold 20,000 items. And so I have 2 choices. I can either wait for more people to want to buy these items, or I have to reduce my price. And so just by nature of how the GE works, it actually encourages pricing to decrease over time just because they limit the amount of demand that can occur for an item. Now, there's a few different ways that this is actually combated by Jagex, and the first one is having a high alk value, in that the value of an item for most items is fixed at a certain base value. And so you can actually see, and go to the Runescape wiki and check this out, there's actually some items that you can buy off the GE that are actually profitable from a high alking perspective. Now, this kind of arbitrarily keeps their price higher than it would otherwise be, because people are going to go and try to obtain profit. And so it's actually quite interesting as well, because oftentimes what you can do as a flipper, and I've made several guides on flipping, and so check them out, you can actually take advantage as to how this demand gets cut out and actually end up buying items for cheaper than they would normally sell for. So anyway, yeah, I've done videos on that. Check them out. Help you find profitable items to flip and kind of the theory of flipping and everything like that. But this is why these opportunities exist, where in a quote-unquote free market where there wouldn't be any manipulation done either by Jagex in the form of trade limits or in high alking, theoretically the market should be relatively stable and simply based upon supply and demand as it relates to the actual characters, and not artificial demand limitations slash supply limitations. But anyway, that's for a whole other video. So I hope this little guide helped you understand the dynamics of what makes prices go up and what makes prices go down in RuneScape. If I've missed anything, or if you want to add anything, please mention it in the comment below. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to continue seeing more content like this. Let's cue the outro.
Rose.